Good morning, everybody. How we doing this fine Tuesday? We've done a lot of work on the draft for the last several weeks now, and I think we've done a pretty good job covering the areas of most significant interest for the Seahawks. But I don't think the work is done yet. When you're drafting as an NFL team, one of the goals that you have is the ability to take best player available as often as possible. If you can take best player available as often as possible, you are making your team the best it possibly can be, opposed to drafting for need, where you end up taking players that may not be as good as other players you could have gotten because in your mind, you need to fill this need. So we've spent the last several weeks discussing the Seahawks' significant needs, but that doesn't mean we're only going to address those needs in the draft. If certain players are available at certain slots when our pick comes up in the draft, then it may very well make sense for us to make a slightly unconventional pick with a guy who we don't so obviously need right now. So we're now going to turn the page and take a look at some positions that are not severe needs for this roster at the moment. Before I get into today's position, which will be left guard, we're going to take a look at three guys who caught my attention. Seahawks stream. So I was thinking about doing a Seahawks stream last night. I couldn't make it happen. Had some stuff going on. Basically, I want to do a stream to discuss the Seahawks situation going into this draft. I wanted to do a stream where we could all get together and talk about, what players do you prefer? What do you want to do with this spot? Do you want to trade up? Do you want to trade down? Do you want to do this? We'll just talk about all this draft stuff with the Seahawks. Couldn't make it happen last night. I'm going to try to make it happen later this week. It might be tonight, could be tomorrow, could be the day after. I don't know. But I'm going to try to make it happen as soon as possible because now we've finished with all the positions of big need. So keep an eye out in the coming days for a stream. I just don't know what day it's going to be. I don't know what time it's going to be. I need to make it work around some other things I have going on in my life, but it will happen. I definitely want to have at least one stream a couple of weeks before the draft where we start to really formulate things. There are going to be more streams as we get closer to the draft, like I'm going to do the mock draft extravaganza, but we want to do that stream too. Okay, so left guard. Now, the situation with the Seahawks guard spot right now is kind of muddled. If it were up to me, if it were me calling the shots, what I would do is I would cut Gabe Jackson, and then I would put Phil Haynes in at left guard. And then I would move Damian Lewis back to right guard. To me, that makes the most sense in the world. We have a year with a garbage quarterback who gives us very, very low odds of being able to win a lot of games. Let's see if Phil Haynes can hold up. Let's see if he can play good over the course of a full season. And let's see what Damian Lewis has because this is year 3 for him. This is a big year for him. He needs to show what he can do, and we need to put him back at the best possible position for him to succeed. Gabe Jackson, he's 32. He's a good player, but he's clearly not part of this team's future. I don't think he's a great player anymore, and he's only going to get worse. So with us having a quarterback like a Drew Lock right now, and with us having most of our assets tied up into future draft picks, where we have, I think, 4 picks in the top 64 next year, it doesn't make any sense to me to keep Gabe Jackson on this team. He's still got something left. Maybe you trade him for a 5th round or 6th round pick, but that's what I would do. It doesn't seem like that's the direction we're leaning right now. What I'm hearing is that we're going to keep Damian Lewis at left and then let Gabe and Phil battle it out for the right guard spot, which to me is completely backwards. There are a lot of people who comment on my videos and on my streams, and they defend Pete Carroll, right? They stand up for Pete Carroll. I attack him, and they kind of defend him, and they say, no, I think this is okay. I think what he did here is fine. I've never seen a single person try to defend Pete on the Damian Lewis playing left guard thing. It didn't work last year. It didn't work for very obvious reasons, so why are you sticking with it when you have a natural left guard on the roster in Phil Haynes, plus a guy who has played left guard effectively before in Gabe Jackson, if you wanted to keep him? So, with us not knowing the situation that the Seahawks have at left guard right now, at least not in full, it's hard to say if they really have a need there. If they're really going to hope that Damian Lewis can be the guy going forward at left guard, then obviously the need there is very low. Damian Lewis is a young player who has played well already in his NFL career, mostly at right guard, but he's a good young player that you would expect to be there for a long time. But if the plan is to move forward with Phil Haynes or Gabe Jackson, then there is a need. Phil Haynes is injury prone and Gabe Jackson is old. So if that's the plan, then you could spend an earlier pick on a left guard like one of these guys. So we have Ed Ingram from LSU is my first guy here, 6'3", 307 pounds. Nice lean size for a left guard in a zone blocking scheme. Ran almost a 5-second 40, which is really good for a guard. It shows you that he has the foot speed to play in Waldron's offense. 7.813 cone, 4.76 20-yard shuttle. Long arms for a guard, 33.6 inches. Pretty nice. Very, very, very much good enough. And the big boards are kind of all over the place on him. Walter Football really likes him. They think he could be a second-round pick. The Draft Network, Sports Illustrated, PFF say third. CBS and ESPN say like a fourth. ESPN even went as far as to have him listed as maybe a fifth. I think you are looking at like a third-round pick, maybe an early fourth. And if we are planning to move forward with Phil Haynes and Gabe Jackson competing for left guard like I want, it would make some sense to me to go after a guy like Ed Ingram in the third or early fourth. As for Ed specifically, he can play either guard spot. He can play left, he can play right. I think he'll be better at left because he's more mobile, but he does have a lot of strength to him, so he can play right guard as well. And he even played a little bit of tackle in college. I don't know if it's going to translate to the NFL, but he did show those skills when he was at LSU. He's scheme versatile. If you want to play power O, if you just want to do power running up the gut all game, then he can do that. He's strong enough for that. But he also has the mobility and agility to play in space in a zone scheme. So scheme versatile. He's strong enough to run block effectively, so you're not losing a whole lot in that regard. He's athletic enough to pull block as well, which is going to be key for this offensive system. He's good in space, and he's got a high football IQ. So he does have these traits that we're looking for in guards in the Waldron offense that, other than maybe Phil Haynes, we don't really have right now. The issues with Ingram would be he has some off-field concerns. There was some stuff that happened with him in his college career off the field. It seems like he's moved past it, but you never know. He is good in space. He is athletic enough to pull block, but there is some technique he needs to improve on with his movement. Now, I think that coming to a offense like this one will probably help with that, but he does need to get better with his technique in space. And overall, I don't think he's bad at it, but his pass blocking is not amazing. His pass blocking is definitely behind his run blocking to me. So as a left guard, your pass blocking is a little more important. I still think he should end up being a left guard in the NFL, but his pass blocking needs to catch up a little bit in my estimation. But really nice prospect for the third or fourth round. Okay, next up we have Darion Kinnard from Kentucky, the Wildcats. He's a bigger guy, which that kind of puts up some alarm bells immediately, right? 6'5", 322 pounds, getting close to Damian Lewis size, 5.31 40, 8.113 cone, 4.96 20-yard shuttle. So the athletic measurables are not as strong as they were with Ed Ingram. 35-inch arms as well, so very, very long arms, particularly for an interior guard, so no issues there. So I guess we like that. The big boards, some of them have him in round 2, others have him in round 3. If he ends up being a second-round pick, I don't know if we can justify that. I don't want to bet a huge amount on him, but it's possible Phil Haynes is the guy. He just needed to get past some of those injuries. So I don't want to spend a second round pick on a guard when we might already have a starting left guard of the future. And, of course, right guard of the future if you include Damian Lewis. So I'm not really into spending a second round pick on a guy when I don't even know if he's going to get a great chance to play. However, if Phil Haynes ends up not being the guy, then I'm a little more amenable to it. And if he creeps into the third round, like ESPN and the Draft Network think he could, then I'm intrigued. And Kinnard, what I can say about him is he's a very powerful player. He blocked for a variety of offensive types. The offense at Kentucky has changed significantly over his stay there, and he was able to keep up with that. He's scheme versatile and mobile for his size, and that's the thing I want to emphasize here. He's a bigger guy, but this is not like a Damian Lewis situation. This is a guy who can play pretty well in space despite his size. He probably moves a little better on the football field than his times would suggest. These times don't look that impressive, even for a guy of his size, but when you get him on the field, he can do those things a little bit better. He's got very long arms, like I said, 35-inch arms, and he's got some right tackle ability. If you look at his size and you look at his measurables, he does in some ways look like he could be a good right tackle. But looking at him as a guard, I do like him a lot. Now, the drawbacks would be he's going to need some coaching and development. He's not a finished product yet. He does play with a lack of balance that I feel like gets him in trouble sometimes. So he probably just needs more experience and he needs more time in a pro-style offense. The biggest issue with Kinnard is that he might go too early. If he goes in the second round, with where we stand right now as a team, I can't really do that. I would need him to get into the third round before I would consider Darion Kinnard. But if he did, then he's going to be on my list. Maybe not at the top of that list in the third round, but he's definitely on the list. Finally, we're going to talk about a guy that the Seahawks have already spent a decent amount of time looking at and seem to have a lot of interest in. It's Cole Strange of Tennessee Chattanooga, which is where I think Terrell Owens went. I don't know if they produced very many NFL players between then, but if that's their main showcase, then I guess they're doing pretty well. 6'5", 307 pounds, so he's a little leaner. He had a good 40 time for a guard, 5.03. Good 3-cone. Really good 3-cone. Really good 20-yard shuttle for a bigger guy, 33-inch arms, good enough. Plenty good enough. Some of the big boards have him going in the third round. Some of them have him going in the fourth. I think this guy's going to be a fourth-round pick if I had to guess. I think Cole Strange is a fourth-rounder based off what I've seen. And it's pretty clear why the Seahawks have shown so much preliminary interest in him. He seems like he would fit a lot of the things that the Rams offense that we're trying to run wants to do with their interior linemen. He's got a lot of experience. He's a great run blocker despite his somewhat, I don't want to say he's weak, but he can get pushed around a little bit. But his technique as a run blocker does hold up pretty well. He's got a high football IQ. He's aggressive and he plays powerfully. He's great in space. I think that's probably the biggest draw of him. He's great playing in space, very good on his feet, very good pulling to the next level, very good maneuvering around the field through traffic. He always gives high effort, holds up pretty well in pass blocking, and he played well on the handful of opportunities he got against elite competition, like, say, Kentucky. Most of the games he played were obviously against low-level competition because he's playing for Tennessee Chattanooga, but when he did get to play a good team like Kentucky, he actually did pretty well. Now, the issues with Cole Strange would be that his pass protection technique does need some work. Me and the Hawks Nest have done a little bit of conversing about Cole Strange, and one thing that he's noticed is that he gets blown up a lot in pass pro, and hopefully it's more of a technique thing. I think at least some of it gets cleaned up with technique, but some plays he does look a little weak, which, in fairness, compared to a lot of these guys, he probably is. He's a little bit on the older side. I think he'll be 25 by the time the next NFL season starts, so you're already looking at a guy who's capped out physically. And if you draft him, you have to be prepared to accept the fact that he's going to need time on the bench, which is fine. We can give a year to Gabe Jackson or Phil Haynes and see what they have, be it left guard or right guard, right? Because Gabe's not going to be here in 2023 almost certainly, because he's probably going to slip more as a player, and he's getting older, and we just don't have any reason to keep him around. And Phil Haynes is probably auditioning for a future job here. And those are the 3 left guards that really caught my attention. There are obviously going to be more, but I didn't want to dive too deep into like the top guards, like the Zion Johnsons and the Kenyon Greens of the world, because I don't think the need is big enough for us to consider going that direction. And there are probably some interesting sleepers out there, but again, this is not a high priority position to me. So I don't want to spend a ton of time turning over every rock for a good left guard. So these 3 guys, they might all go in round 3 or round 4. If the Seahawks want to search for a potential guard of the future in that area, I think that's reasonable. And these 3 guys stuck out to me as being fits for what we are trying to do on offense and giving us an opportunity to get the most out of whatever offensive talent we bring going forward. Tomorrow we will be doing right guard, and we'll take a look at some slightly bigger guys, some slightly slower guys, maybe stronger guys. And we're just going to try to quickly blow through these final positional groups because, again, I just don't want to spend a ton of time on a bunch of positions that I don't think the Seahawks are going to make a heavy investment into, or at least they shouldn't as of right now. Again, sorry that I wasn't able to do the Seahawks stream last night. Going to try to do it later this week. Could be tonight, could be Friday. Sometime between now and then, though, it should happen. So, I will see you guys later today. Come check me out on Twitch. Should be streaming some of the show. Might stream more Halo. And hope to see y'all later. Peace out. Go Hawks.